Welcome to the show. Reverend Mitch Austin here. And I am so excited for today's show. Change your story, change your life. I'm your host, Reverend Mitch Austin, and we are here with Gary Lynn Floyd. So excited to have you, Gary. So, Change Your Story, Change Your Life was born out of a little class called Rise and Speak, where people get to talk about their defining moments and how their story unfolded differently, how things, unexpected shifts, changes, revelations ended up putting them on a new path. And doing that look back was very healing. People could see the lesson or blessing. So we're going to look at some defining moments from Gary's life today and see what we learn about Gary. Starting off with his bio, though, Gary Lynn Floyd is an American singer-songwriter who connects straight to the heart and fills the room with his inspirational lyrics and soulful style. I know, I've been to a couple of concerts. It's amazing. I love what you do. Gary is a native of Houston, and he began picking up melodies on a piano at 4 years old, so young. And he's been making music ever since. Today, he writes and records deep and meaningful music and shares these songs like a gift to audiences across the country. His style is a mix of pop, rhythm, and blues, combining silky vocals with powerful lyrics. It is Gary's openness to divine inspiration that fuels his endless supply of musical ideas, creates his heart-opening lyrics, and is that light that shines through his performances. With the piano and microphone, Gary is a catalyst for positive change and raises collective vibration, not only through his music, but also through his welcoming presence on stage. And I love all the stories that you do in between your songs. It's so great. Gary brings his musical performance, the culmination of a life's work, from early roots of gospel and jazz to the stage, screen acting, to his recent one-man show entitled When Gary Met Harry. God, that sounds good. We have to unpack that. The music of Harry Warren. Gary draws from a deep and eclectic well of talent and experience. And in fact, Gary had won 3 awards on the Out Music Awards, right? For the Gospel Zen album. Was it from that album?
It was. I was just nominated for those. I didn't actually win the awards, but I was nominated for
three different awards. You were nominated.
Album of the year. That was pretty cool that year.
Wow. That's awesome. And David Goldberg says Gary Lynn Floyd is quickly becoming a favorite singer and songwriter in the New Thought music world. So welcome to the show, Gary. Amazing, amazing, amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That's a lot to live up to. I didn't actually write that bio, so my friend Laura wrote it, and yeah, it's quite a bit to live up to, but I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, it's hard to write a bio, isn't it? I had somebody else write mine too. I wrote something, and then they're like, oh, no, and then they rewrote it for me.
Right. Just get somebody else's perspective. So if that's how she saw me, then it's really, really an honor and really nice to be thought of that way.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so grateful for you. And where are you in the world right now, Gary? And what are you up to these days?
Live in Reno, Nevada. I'm the artist in residence at Center for Spiritual Living here in Reno. And I live here with my partner, Danny, and our 2 dogs. And we just have a great life here near the Sierra Mountains. And it's a beautiful place to live. We spend a lot of time camping and going up to the lake. And there's a lot of outdoor stuff to do here.
I know. I have you on my Facebook. I always see you guys out there with the dogs and on the trail, and you're having a good time with it.
We have a good time.
So, Gary, we met the other day, and I got to learn a little bit about you, and you've been on quite a journey, spiritually, socially, all kinds of ways in your artistic pursuits. If your life story were a book, what would the title be?
I've had this title in my head for a long time. I'm kind of scared to write the book. But the title would be from Baptist to bad boy to Buddhist and beyond.
And beyond. I love it.
I've had quite a life.
Wow.
I don't get a chance to talk
Wow.
much about it, but I definitely
Wow.
have had, it's changed your story, change your life. And my story has changed quite a few times in my life. So,
Right.
and continues to.
Yeah, and some of those changes, came with some bumps and lumps, absolutely, because you started out in Texas, right, as a Baptist? Is that
I did. I was
right?
born the youngest of 4 kids in a Southern Baptist family. I was born in Houston, and we moved to Conroe, which used to be about 40 miles north of Houston. Now it's kind of been
Right,
absorbed into Houston.
right.
And yeah, East Texas, Southern Baptist.
Yay!
Yeah, so that's how it all began for me.
Wow.
And
So
like
that
you
was
said, I started playing piano when I was 4. I
wow.
don't really remember it, but my sister would be practicing her piano, for hours, and then I would
Mhm.
go in and just kind of pick out the melody of what she had played. She was 8 years
Wow.
older than me. She'd go to my mom and say, "Gary's bullying me." She thought I was bullying her. I was just kind of playing, and so I kind of came here with with
Mm,
that ability somehow to
mm.
just begin to kind of hear things by ear and pick out the music.
And that led to your early award at 14, right? Winning the
Oh,
Christian equivalent of American Idol back at that
oh
time,
yeah.
right?
There was a thing called the Christian Artist Seminar in Estes Park, Colorado.
Yeah.
My sister had a subscription to Campus Life magazine way back in the day. I don't know if anybody knows about that magazine, but it may still be around. And
Right.
she saw an ad for this national talent competition. And so I signed up. I was too young, actually.
Oh, wow.
It was from 16 to 19. I was 15, but
Wow.
I went and
Mm.
just happened to win that. And that began to kind of open up a lot of doors for me in the Baptist world. And I started playing in churches and
Mm.
youth camps and
Oh, yeah.
conferences. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that kind of started the ball rolling for me so my career professionally kind of started early on. I was 14, 15 years old.
And at that time, because you told me you were a big Amy Grant fan. Were you a big Amy Grant fan at that time?
I have a funny story at that event at the
Yeah.
Christian Artist Seminar. I walked into the hall where they were doing the concerts at night,
Mhm.
and there was a girl that was over tuning her guitar, and she
Mhm.
had an electric tuner that I hadn't
Mhm.
seen before. And
Mhm.
I thought she was kind of cute, actually. So I was going to go and talk to her. And I
Right.
went and she showed me the tuner and how it was tuning the guitar. And we had a little visit. And then later that night,
Mm.
is her first time. She was just starting out too. And later that night in the concert, they're like, "Here's a brand new artist, Amy Grant." And she walked out on the stage and it was the girl that was tuning her guitar. So um, I was just immediate fan once she started singing. And so yeah, I've been a fan of Amy since I was
So
15.
you met her?
I did meet her. I've met her a couple of times, not as a
Wow.
songwriter, not as anybody that she would, as a songwriter or anything, but I have met her a few
Oh,
times. I met her on a plane,
wow.
got her autograph on a plane one time. I
Nice.
was in college. I was going to the Dove Awards in Nashville from Waco. So I flew
Mhm.
in. She was
Yeah.
on tour and so she was going to the Dove Awards. And the very next day,
Mhm.
I got back on the plane to go back to Dallas.
Mhm.
And I look up and there's Amy Grant again, getting back on the plane.
She's following you.
And she actually said, "Gary, what are you doing back on the plane?" So I was so impressed that in that 24-hour period, she remembered my name. I was really impressed with that. So that just made me even more of a fan.
Yeah. Or she was worried you were a stalker, one of the other.
She might have been. She might have been at that point.
Oh, that's fabulous. And and from what I learned, Gary, you were kind of on your way to your own version of stardom, almost like you had record deals and
I had an independent label deal with the Division of Light Records in California. I was
right.
writing songs for Home Sweet Home Records, a guy named Chris Christian. He signed me to a
Mhm.
publishing deal. I co-wrote a song with some friends of mine that I didn't
Mhm.
record the song, but a guy named
Right.
Steve Archer recorded the song and it went to #1 on the Christian charts. So yeah,
Wow.
I thought that's what was going to be my story.
Right.
And yeah, I was on my way to kind of going down that path.
Right. It's interesting because I'm sure that was your plan, right?
Oh yeah.
But
And
we plan and God laughs, right? There was a major twist in your story. And in fact, you were at Baylor at the time, right? Were you still in college when this was all unfolding?
I was
Mm.
the publishing deal and the yeah, I was probably sophomore, junior in college,
Right.
and
Right.
was touring a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought that, I thought it was going to be my life. I didn't even
Right.
want to really go to college, but, because I thought that this was just going to be
Right.
it. I went to college. I haven't really used my degree at all. So,
Wow.
but
Wow.
yeah, I was in college when this was all beginning to kind of unfold
Right.
for me.
Right. And you had a relationship with you had a girlfriend, or were you engaged, or
I was engaged when I was a senior, and I, yeah, I graduated before she did, and kind of
yeah.
came to terms with the fact that I always I was born this way. I always knew that I was gay, but I always thought that
Mhm.
um, in the Baptist world, the indoctrination is really different. And I thought, I guess in the back of my mind, I thought that if I would just get married, that it would all take care of itself, and
Right.
that God could kind of make me attracted in that way.
Right.
And so luckily I graduated a year early, and
Right.
kind of came to terms with
Mhm.
myself and came out. And so I luckily didn't go down that road of getting married. I probably, had I not met the people that I met, that kind of
Right.
encouraged me to take a really hard look at myself, and
Wow.
realize that I, needed to make some changes in my story.
Wow, Gary. And I'm kind of curious because, being indoctrinated and having that kind of view of God, did you feel like you fell out of favor with God, or that you were being judged by God because you were now kind of living your truth or your
Um,
authenticity?
I don't know if it ever was God, because I never really lost my spirituality, but I
Mm,
definitely fell out of favor with uh, my family, and with pretty much everybody I knew, because I had a pretty sheltered existence before. It was a Baptist school. I went to Baylor University, so it was
right.
really
Yeah.
everybody I knew was Christian or Baptist.
Mhm.
And so I definitely had a break and fell out of favor with that group of people. But I'm not sure I ever really thought that I fell out of favor with God. Uh,
Wow, that's
I
fabulous.
think that
That's
I always kind of kept, because the things that I connected with about Jesus were the teachings that he had about, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and
yeah.
the things that I can do, you can do.
And even greater things,
And
yeah.
I held on to
Right.
uh, teachings
Mm,
more than I did the specific
mm,
teachings of the Baptist Church and
right,
Christianity, which I don't think
right.
a lot of times are in line with the essence
Mm.
of Jesus.
Yeah, that's brilliant that you could connect with that and hold on to that as kinda your anchor.
It
Uh,
doesn't mean I didn't go through a dark time, because once everything fell apart, I didn't know what to do. I was pretty much alone, and dealing with it on my own. And I don't think that the people that I knew that were around me really knew how to deal with it either. So it was,
mhm.
it was definitely a difficult time at that point.
Yeah, I can only imagine because all your friends probably didn't have much experience with this world or this way of being or what they called a lifestyle, your life.
Right. And the most of the people that that I went to Baylor with, that actually came out and are gay,
Right.
were closeted at the time, as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely an interesting dynamic to
Yeah.
be brought up uh, in that philosophy, in that theology.
And so clearly the record contracts went away and
It,
the whole plan got upended.
the whole plan blew up Yeah. I'm grateful now, as my 61-year-old self now, I can look back and I've got a different perspective. And so I know that it needed to happen that way. I don't know if it hadn't happened that way. I'm not sure how far I would have gone in before I would have been honest with myself and honest with who I was. And I probably would have done a lot more damage and hurt a lot more people had it not unfolded the way that it did. So I'm
Right.
grateful. At the time, it was devastating, but I'm
Right.
grateful that it happened as it did, because then I was able to kind of begin to figure it out younger than I would have.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you were how old at this time?
I was in my early 20s, graduated
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
college. And so
Yeah.
probably early mid 20s
Right.
when
Right.
I came out, but I was kind of outed as well
Oof. Mm.
by just, a couple of friends who were feeling it was their Christian duty to,
Oh,
out of their, I don't know what it is,
yeah.
I think they thought that it was their Christian duty to let people know. I don't know. And I'm kind of grateful for that too, because
Right.
it pushed me out,
Mm.
it made me deal with things that I wasn't wanting to deal with,
Mhm.
and helped me to, and I didn't deal with it well for a long time, but
Mhm.
at least it got me separated from that upbringing. And then I had to just begin to kind of find my way and figure out who I was in the world and how I connected with my spirit and with
Oh, yeah.
God, and all
Oh,
of it
yeah.
really shifted.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, and it's a great example of when an old life is ready to leave us, we can either let go or be dragged, you know?
Yeah. You know, I numbed out for a long time and didn't know how to deal. And
Yeah.
luckily music kind of saved me through the whole thing.
Wow.
I came out, and then there was nothing, my career basically was done and my livelihood was done. Um,
Mm.
and so I had a friend who told me about a piano bar in Dallas called John L's, and they had an open mic night on Monday night. And so
Wow.
I went. I didn't really even know. I knew some pop songs. I mean, I was a fan of James Taylor and Kenny Loggins and
Right.
Michael McDonald, and so I had some exposure to pop music. So I went and played for the open mic, and the owner of the club came and said, "Hey, we have an opening on Tuesday nights. Do you want to play?" So I really didn't miss a beat musically.
Wow.
And I think that's what sustained me through those difficult years of trying to figure out, now what do I do with my life?
Wow. Wow,
And
the
so,
irony is amazing. Here is the Christian Baptist, singer saved by a piano bar, I mean, I
yes.
don't know. Does the irony get any better than
And,
that?
I was messed up in my head about it for a long time of, okay, well, who's going to, people
Yeah.
are going to see me in
Right.
the gay bar, and,
Right.
all that stuff
Mm.
that went through
Oh,
my
yeah,
head of just,
yeah.
trying to figure it out.
Well, and this was still the 80s, right? I mean,
Oh
80s,
yeah. It was
90s.
the late 80s,
Yeah.
probably 88, 89. The funny thing, I was still involved in, my sister and her husband was a minister of youth at a
Mhm.
Baptist church. My
Mhm.
uncle was president of the Southern Baptist Convention in the
Oh,
80s.
ho,
So
ho,
this was my
ho.
family. I mean, I was like entrenched in it. Um, but
Wow.
I actually had, there was a big Easter pageant that
Mm.
First Baptist Richardson had, and in a big auditorium in the high
Mhm.
school. And for 2 years, as this was beginning to unfold, and I kind of was trying to figure all things out before I actually totally came out and was outed.
Right.
I played Jesus in the Easter pageant, which was
Oh my god.
it was a real trip, because
Wow.
it was the whole pageant. So I mean, I was like up on the cross and they were singing, and I'm looking down, and I remember weeping,
Mm.
because I would look around at the people and think, if you only knew, what I'm going through and what I'm struggling with, and
Yeah.
who I who I am. you'd probably be doing this to me. So it was a really profound experience for me too. And I think that kind of helped me in my spiritual uh, growth and my spiritual experience through all of that, to have been able to play that role and to feel that in a really weird way, as a gay man that was struggling with coming out and playing Jesus hanging on the cross. It was pretty bizarre.
Irony after irony, isn't it, Gary?
Yeah, it's a very weird story of my life, but
art imitating life. That's a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Well, we have to take a commercial break, but don't go away. We're going to talk more with Gary Lynn Floyd and this turn in his life, and maybe how he found New Thought, or New Thought found him. I don't know. We'll see. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Change Your Story, Change Your Life, and check out antn.org. So many wonderful webinars, resources, people, and their main retreat in the fall, first week of October 2024. You don't want to miss it. Unity Campus. Amazing. One of the best retreats I've ever been to. So we are here. We are back with Gary Lynn Floyd. And we're just looking now at this kind of turn in the road. You're at the piano bar. You're kind of rebuilding your life on a more authentic kind of narrative for yourself, and exploring the meaning of that, I imagine, and what's next, and going from that at some point to New Thoughts. So how did that all unfold?
Well, I spent quite a few years. I sang in a jazz vocal trio called Wise Guys and moved to New York, and we were really successful. We played the White House and Carnegie Hall with Rosemary Clooney, and did a lot of those high profile gigs. And then I met my partner, Carrie, and I had gone back to Dallas to live in Dallas. And he said, "You got to get out of here." I was still, struggling with, that was where I had lived before I came out. Then after I came out, and it was just kind of still a lot of that old stuff. So we packed up a U-Haul and moved to Venice Beach.
Wow.
I discovered a guy named Paul Farini, who is a really great author. And he had a book called Reflections of the Christ Mind, which was my favorite book. If you saw the book, it's like almost torn apart right now because I read it so many times. But he was kind of a bridge for me to get beyond the Jesus that I was taught about in the Baptist world and really begin to connect with Christ's mind and what he was talking about, of the spirit that was in him is in each of us. And that it was that Christ consciousness that I've learned a lot more about over the years. So I lived in Venice Beach. I moved to Nashville. I had some opportunity to, in the country world, I wasn't a country artist. I was a piano player. I was not, trying to make anything fit. I think part of it probably too, as I continued playing music, a lot of times I would write music because I couldn't talk about things. I couldn't express myself because I think my throat chakra, at least when it came to actually speaking my truth, shut down. So the way that I could express my truth was through music, and I would write songs and play them and record them and try to get, I'm sure that there were times when I was writing songs back to my family specifically my mom and dad, trying to communicate with them, but I would communicate through music because I really didn't know any other way to do it.
Wow.
Went to Nashville for a while. I got sick with spinal meningitis, and I had to move back to Dallas. I wound up very sick for a while.
Wow.
And I wound up back in Dallas, and I started doing musical theater. My friend Denise Lee encouraged me to audition for a show called Pump Boys and Dinettes. They needed a musical director that played piano. It seemed like it was perfect for me.
Wow.
I got the role, and then started about a 10-year run with musical theater in Dallas. It was really great. And in that time, I was still playing the piano bars, and I knew Michael Gott from the piano bar. He played at the really nice piano bar, and I played at the hole in the wall piano bar. I always wanted to play at the one he played. But we knew each other in that world. And he would come to me and ask me if I would fill in for him at this church that he was playing. And originally I was like, no, I have no interest in
You're done with church, right?
Don't want to do it. He kept at it. And I think he knew, because I was writing music, and my music that I was writing was spiritual. I mean, my spirit and my music have always been so connected because of how I was brought up. And that never changed. That was my connection with spirit for me, was through my music. And that didn't change after I was out of Christian music. It just continued in a different way. And so I think he could tell that. And so he kept asking. I finally was like, okay, $50, I'll play it. You know, I could use that extra $50 this year to pay my electric bill or whatever. So I'll fill in for you this particular Sunday. And it was Center for Spiritual Living Dallas. And so I went and filled in for him. And then when he wound up, it's kind of interesting because he came to Reno, where I am now. And the piano was open there. I wasn't the music director, but I started playing piano in the on the music team. And for a long time, we'd play music, and then we'd go have, coffee and bagels during Reverend Peter's talk, and then we'd come back and play music. Being a musician that just was having a gig.
Right.
And I eventually met my current partner, Danny. We've been together 16 years, but I met him. And when we started dating, he was curious he knew me from the piano bars and from the musical theater that I was doing in Dallas, but she didn't know about the church gig. So when we started dating, he was like, well, what's this church that you're playing at? And I said, Center for Spiritual Living. And he didn't recognize it, but he had been in religious science back in the late 80s in California. And so I said, it's a guy named Ernest Holmes. And, it's a pretty cool, it's a great church. I like the people, and it's pretty cool teaching. I mean, I don't pay a whole lot of attention. And he said, hold on a minute. And he came back with the book, this thing called You. And it immediately resonated. And I was like, oh, wow. And he said, you really should, your music is right along these lines. And you really, think about staying through the talk. And, and after I read the book, I was like, oh, wow, this feels like home. It feels like a place where I could really become part of a community. And it made sense to me. Just that transition, because it pulls a lot from Christianity and from Christ consciousness. And so it really resonated with me. And so I started staying, and when I finished that book, he gave me Creative Mind and Success. So and then I couldn't believe it that this guy that I was dating was the one that was giving me the books, and it kind of brought him back into the world. He had left for a while into New Thought and CSL. So that was really my introduction, was filling in for Michael Gott. And then Danny kind of nudged me a little bit further into really, seeing what the teaching was about, and to kind of show up a little more fully and explore it. And so then if I'm talking too much, just tell me. And
No, I'm loving this.
I have really good friends with Karen Drucker, and we have conversations like this, and I'm like, am I talking too much?
Well,
Tell me if I'm talking
is
too
it,
much.
am I going
My
to?
throat chakra is beginning to open up a
Yeah,
little
this,
more, in my old age. So
it's interesting, Gary, as you're speaking, it just kind of makes me, I love to play this game, kind of what was God thinking, and it almost feels like, maybe before you came into this our incarnation, right? That, part of your divine assignment was going to be, yeah, you're going to drop into this Baptist world, but you're actually going to make a whole left turn into this new thought world because we need you over there, right? We need you like all up on the Bible and doing music, but then we're going to reallocate those skills over here.
yeah. It's it feels looking back, it feels so connected now.
Yeah.
It didn't for such a long time.
Yeah.
I really I'm grateful for the foundation that I got with music, especially singing and music, learning how to sing harmony, and just the music that I was brought up with is so rich.
Mm.
When I was on the music team at CSL Dallas for a while, and then Danny was like, he began to teach me about visioning. I didn't know what visioning was, and he said, "Well, let's do some visioning because there's a place called Asilomar in California, and they have these big conferences there, and it's all this whole world, and let's just vision that to see what that might look like."
Yeah.
And within a year, Reverend Petra and my friend Robin Hackett went. She was on the music team the year before, and so she went, and they kind of were talking me up a little bit as this new guy that was playing in their band.
Right.
And Danny and I were continuing to vision, and I was beginning to learn a little bit more, and just kind of dive into the principles of New Thought. And one day my phone rings, and it was Lisa Ferraro, who was the music director.
Oh.
And she says, I never hire anybody that I haven't worked with or that I don't know, but you come really highly recommended. And so would you like to come and be on the music team at Asilomar? And I was like, I was looking at the phone. I'm like, I can't believe this.
It's real? Is this real?
This is it. So I was on the music team, met a lot of people, and then and Danny had started working in Phoenix, and so we wound up moving to the West Coast, and that was really the beginning of me beginning to be able to play in different centers and churches out here. I was aware of Unity Church too in Dallas. I had played there a few times. But I began to kind of get opportunity in this New Thought music world, and we moved out to the West Coast, and
Wow.
and I'm really grateful for the people that I've met and have been able to continue my career. And it kind of is interesting to me that it's full circle, has come back around to, I'm playing spiritual music again, and doing conferences and retreats and teen camp, and playing.
I remember you at teen camp. Actually, it was
a music team in the church here in Reno, and just like you said, I think it is. I'm not sure if we make contracts before we come and have there's a path that we take when we get here, but it seems like that's it seems like that makes sense to me, because it has been a full circle for me of coming back around and just kind of finding myself again in a fuller way, in a deeper way spiritually, to really connect with being an expression of Christ's mind in the world. And I use Christ because that's my upbringing. It could be Buddha nature. I had a really good friend. She sang in Dallas. I was playing the Unity Church, and this short Buddhist monk came up with his brown robe, and he says, "Would you be the Gary Floyd that played in my Baptist youth camp when I was in like junior high?" Like, that's probably me. Yep. And he had gone through his process and had become a Buddhist monk, which really helped me to kind of pull everything together even more. Somebody that remembered me and had, that I had made an impact on him. And then he made an impact on me because I started going to his Sangha and learned, I'm kind of a spiritual sponge. I love the New Thought teaching. I also, if anything that resonates with me spiritually, I absorb it. And, and so he was really, he had a big impact on me too, as far as meditation. He taught me walking meditation, and just seeing that there were so many different paths that are leading up the same mountain, same place, and they're all valid, but just to open my mind more to spiritual paths that I wasn't familiar with, and realize that they're all, we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's really kind of the eye-opening experience I share it with you is just seeing, because I can sit in a Christian church and hear science of mind, or I can go to a Buddhist and see the spiritual laws in action. In fact, I think I'm a closet Buddhist. Don't tell nobody.
Mitch, it's kind of funny. Recently, I had a Sunday off here in Reno, and I wasn't scheduled. I usually either I'm here in Reno at CSL or I'm traveling and playing somewhere else on a Sunday. But this particular Sunday, I had the Sunday off, and I just felt led and compelled to go. There's a place called Grace Church here in Reno, and it's a big evangelical church, and I was curious about it. I wanted to experience the music, especially. And so I was by myself. I went to the church, and in the past it would have really triggered me, because I've gotten triggered by that, just being in that whole world again. And but I went in and I kind of did a little treatment for myself before I walked in, that I was just going to be open and experience spirit in whatever way. And I went through that praise and worship time of the music.
Yeah.
They didn't know, but I was celebrating and worshiping and praising the spirit that's in me. Not what they were talking about.
Right.
But I could it was kind of cool for me, because I could see past that, what my perception is of a limited view of it. But I could see past it and experience that feeling of celebrating, God being an expression of that, and that spirit living itself out in me, and praising that thing. And it was really, it was really cool to go back into that world and be able to see it from a different perspective.
And to me, that's really a sign of healing, right? That's a sign that something has really shifted in our awareness, in, deep down in our consciousness, that there's been a healing going on because of how we've opened into a new truth that wasn't there before. So I just think that's so powerful. I do want to welcome some of our guests. We have Karen Dreckers with us. Yay!
Oh, wow!
Right in. I also
were your ears burning, Karen?
I know. I want to say hi to Marcy and Gina and everyone else who's
nice
with us. Just great stuff. And we are going to have to take a commercial break here in a second. Now, we've covered the Baptists and we've covered the Buddhists. I think we need to talk about the beyond when we come back. So
awesome.
Don't go away, anybody. We'll be back in just a minute. See you soon.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome back, everybody, to Change Your Story, Change Your Life. I'm here with my amazing guest, Gary Lynn Floyd. It's been a phenomenal show. It's even going to get better. I'm excited for this next conversation. But please support us. New Thought Media Network helps bring these shows, makes these kind of conversations possible. If you just click on that link there, give us a give us a Starbucks coffee, $5, anything. All of it helps. And we want to continue this work and bring it out more into the world. So definitely appreciate your generous donations. So Gary, we were talking yesterday. We had a juicy conversation.
Here we
about
are.
this. Yeah, about this kind of phase of life that we've both kind of entered into. I just turned 57 this month. I think you're newly 61. Is that
61?
There we go. And
September.
don't look like it at all. Oh my gosh.
Sweet man. You're a sweet man.
living life.
I don't
good here.
necessarily feel it either. You know, I'm just an old teenager, really. You know.
Yeah, me too. I'm totally there. I'm totally there with you. And I loved how, our conversation was just so rich about, you were sharing with me, and it was very powerful about how people are going to live now into another frame of age that we haven't seen before on a large scale, right?
Oh,
You were
yeah.
mentioning something about that.
I recently found a book. I can't remember the author, but it's called From Aging to Saging.
Oh, I
And
love
the whole
that.
concept of, I'm in the fourth quarter.
Mhm.
And I think that it's important. I've got such a different perspective. It's so cool there's nothing magical about turning 60, but it did kind of like shift me in realizing that, okay, I can embrace this time in my life. I don't have to feel like I didn't accomplish what I thought I would accomplish, or that I should be younger, or that, I missed out on anything.
Yeah.
I think that it's an opportunity to embrace, okay, this is this season of my life, and I'm still healthy. And I've got a perspective of life that I didn't have before. There is something to be said for caring less about what people think, and being less moved by, I was so moved and kind of devastated by what people thought of me earlier in my life. And it affected me. And now I look back and I'm like, okay, but like coming out of the closet, this occurred to me the other day. It's really weird, but I think it's being in the fourth quarter that kind of like allows me to see it this way.
Yeah.
But I realized, we're responsible for how we show up, what we make things mean.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about coming out of the closet, and I just recently took the foundations class. It's a Mind Foundations class. Finally, I was in one place long enough to be able to take the class.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to do that before. But what I realized was, in order to come out of the closet, I had to make a decision at some point to go in the closet.
Ooh.
Whether it was, I was young and it was
Mm.
what I felt like I had to do, but it still was a decision I made to go in the closet in the first place. So that was kind of a step of self-forgiveness for me, to forgive myself for feeling like I needed to go in the closet in the first place. Yeah. And then to, be grateful that I came out of the closet, and but it was that thought of, okay, there are many stories about coming out of the closet that I've heard from a lot of different people, but also for me, just taking the responsibility that I did decide to go in the closet at some point. And so, there, just having that perspective of taking responsibility for all the things that unfolded in my life, and how I responded to them, and how I didn't respond to them, and how I became numb for a while, and the choices that I made to deal with things. But to take the responsibility of, okay, that was then, and now I continue to take responsibility for how I show up. And we get to decide what things mean and how we think about them. And it's up to me to change the way I think about things, and I love the creative process and
Mhm.
the image of planting seeds.
Mm,
Spirit, the soil,
mm.
doesn't care what the seed is. It doesn't have an opinion of it.
No.
I can plant whatever seed I want, and it's not that it's a good seed or a bad seed. It's just
Yeah.
that, okay, I can decide what it is and then see what the plant is that grows and decide if that's what I want to grow again. If that's the seed that I want to plant again. And so
Right.
another perspective that I have now, which is cool,
Mhm.
is not that things are good or bad. It it if the substance doesn't have an opinion, it's just gonna, I love the image of the mold. Whatever mold I create, oh, that's what you want, let's fill it. Let's just fill it. And then I get to take responsibility for the mold, and
Right. Right.
and I find that, the longer I'm here, the more I get that a little bit more, and not to judge myself for the things that I create or the thoughts that I have about things, but realize that, okay, that's a way to think about it. It's not good or bad. I can just look at the effects that come and
Yeah.
go, oh, I
Yeah.
don't think I want to experience that. So what if I try to think about it this way? And
Yeah.
it's so powerful to take that
Wow.
responsibility. And, then you can begin to kind of shift your story consciously instead of
Exactly.
happening to you.
Exactly. And I love what you said about, the presence, spirit, God, whatever, doesn't have a judgment about it, you
That's
know,
the hard part,
but we do.
Yeah.
It doesn't, but we do.
Sometimes I think, could we be, if we are
Yeah.
expressions of that spirit, it'd
Yeah.
be nice if we were a little bit more neutral in our expression as well. It doesn't have an opinion. It doesn't judge us. It doesn't
No,
judge what we want to create or what we're thinking.
no,
It's
no.
just, that's where we're co-creators with it.
Right.
I
Right.
co-create what
Right.
happens. And
Yeah.
the rub with it is that you have to take, if in order to live that way, then you really have to be responsible and take responsibility for what you create and what you think. And that's
Yeah.
not things that are happening to you or around you, but you're
Mhm.
participating in it. And that's, for me, that's the most powerful thing in the world, because then I can realize that I get to co-create and have a say in not what happens, but
Mhm.
in my in how I interpret what happens and what I make
Right.
to me.
Right. Yeah. How we assign meaning,
Yeah.
and I love this stage of life because now the look back is so much better informed
Yes.
than it was even in my 40s.
Uh-huh.
And this not caring, I call it my give a farfanugan is broken. Like I'm able to step out of that judgment now, and kind of what you said about, just looking at it as not good or bad, just is. And then what do I want to decide about that? What is the meaning, or what is and I love that you did the cleanup job, like the self-forgiveness. That's one of
Yeah.
the hardest things, I think, for
Yeah.
us to
Just,
do.
and especially with old stuff that, there are so many, I know that everything that I have experienced in my life has led me to this place. So
Yes.
I
Mhm.
I don't think it's predestined. I mean, that's one of the old Baptist things, predestined. You like have this, it's just all meant to be.
Yeah.
I think that I could have made decisions that would have taken me on a completely different path. I could have made decisions where I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, yeah, I don't know what my point is with that, other than
Right.
I think that um, if we're lucky and if we get to stick around long enough to be
Mhm.
in the fourth quarter, then we get a chance to look back at our lives and say, hey, okay, I forgive myself for not seeing that I always have been an expression of the divine.
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
always been that. And I couldn't
Yeah.
see that because I believed what other people said about me for a long time. And that was my choice. And
Yeah.
because of that, I
Yeah.
created all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't we?
but the power of knowing that, that spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, never judged it. And always was just, okay, this is what you want to experience. Here we go. Let's do it. And then to finally come to a point in life where I can see that I am participating and co-creating is just a really great place to be.
It's powerful.
It's not perfect, and it's not that it's it just is that I can make choices, choose thoughts, and then see how I feel and see what comes from them, and then decide if that's what I want to continue to create.
Well, and I love that, because really what you're describing is spiritual mastery, right?
Yeah.
When we get to that level beyond getting so hooked by our stories, right, that we think that these stories are certain things, like that they're powers, that they're somehow controlling us, and they're not. We always had the power here,
Right.
to assign the meaning, to act or react, respond or react. And if we reacted, we can look back and go, yeah, I did that, right? And not really have to judge it.
Right. I did that, and this was the outcome. Do I want to experience that more?
Yeah.
And if I do, okay, then experience it. Create whatever you want to create.
Right.
And spirit isn't judging it. It just, that's the whole, in this class that I took, we talked a lot about oneness. And that's something that's difficult for me now, because I realized that, okay, if everything is one, if everything comes out of the one substance, if everything is one,
right,
that means that everything has to be included. I think there's one part where it says, we are each you're the center and I'm the center. From our perspective, we are each center of the universe. And it says the circumference is infinite.
Yeah.
Therefore, everything has to be included. And so within the oneness, there are people who are creating war and who are creating all kinds of bad, what I consider to be bad things. But if it's one, and maybe you can help me with this, if it's oneness, then, and if spirit doesn't have an opinion as to what you want to create, then that's why there's so many different expressions, because it's all included in the oneness.
Yes.
It's a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
It's so hard. And that's why I think we have to call what we don't see in this equation the mystery, right? It's just like when science studies an electron and splits it into two particles and spins one and the other one spins right away. We don't know the mystery in between that.
Right.
Of why that happens. And you could bring that a step further to say, if everything's one and everything's good and everything's God, then why is there these experiences? And there's a space in between that we can't see.
I just think that there has to be, everything is God, everything is one, but it doesn't necessarily mean everything is good.
Right.
I don't know how that works. I'm still working it out in my 61-year-old brain.
Right. Well, I have to believe that there is no thread of action or inaction we can spin that God can't weave into a pattern of perfection for all, because God is all powerful and God is loving.
Yes.
So a part of me has to believe, I don't understand war, but I have to believe that this all powerful, all loving presence knows how to turn that into good in the long arc of unfolding.
Right.
Probably longer than I can see in my one limited snap of a life experience. And I see it play out in my own life, because now I can look back and go, oh, I can see how that contributed to me having more humility. I can see how this, that kind of stuff.
Part of how I resolve it is that we are all, if I'm an expression of the divine mind, it has to be true of everyone. But we are expressions of divinity to the extent that we're aware of it and that we allow it to flow through us. And if there's an expression that isn't aware, then it create all kinds of, just as I did in my early, in my bad boy years.
Yeah. And I have my own version of that. So I
It
totally
doesn't mean
get
I
you.
ceased. It doesn't mean I wasn't an expression of divinity. It just means that I was not aware that I was, and I wasn't aware that I could participate in what I was creating. And it wasn't stuff that was happening to me.
It almost feels like we're in a dimension that allows us to be unelegant with our God powers. And that this realm of being, this world, allows us to be unelegant, and it all gets cleaned up. It all gets to, almost like a parent puts a kid in the pen only with the things they want destroyed, right? Because they don't put the good stuff in there, right? Because they know some things are going to happen and they're going to have to clean it up. So they make a safe container for those things to happen and then get put back together. And I kind of feel that spirit deals with us, on that level. So.
I also love the ancient teaching, and it was from Jesus, I believe. It is done unto you as you believe.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that's how I can, how I personally can participate in. Okay, it's if it's what I believe, and if it's what I believe about myself, then I will see the fruit of that.
Yeah.
And then the beautiful thing is, then I get an opportunity to go, okay, do I want to change that belief? Because that doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
But if I shift a little bit, oh, wow, okay, that feels a lot better.
Yeah.
And then that feels like it's more of an expression of the good and the loving part of spirit.
Yeah, if I shift a little bit, if I tell myself a new story of possibility, if I do some visioning like you did, new things can show up, and our lives can move in new ways. And again, that's all of what we're learning, as spiritual masters, as gods on the planet. Don't you know ye are gods? We're learning how to use this powerful tool of mind, of consciousness, of the unseen. So Gary, we're getting towards the end of the show here. How can people connect with you? They want to reach out to you. They want to book you for something or have some questions. How can they reach you?
I have my website, GaryLynnFloyd.com. Also, if you want to reach out to me and connect, Facebook is really the best way. Awesome. Gary Lynn Floyd on Facebook. Yeah. You can find me there. You can find me on Instagram, all the social media. Yeah. And then send me an email, GaryLynnFloyd@gmail.com. You can always find me there.
And your music's on Spotify, and
music is everywhere that you would, all the digital platforms, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, all of those. And I just, I have CDs that have been on my website, but are older ones that haven't been on Spotify. But I just uploaded in the middle of December, on December 14th, a whole nother round of old CDs will come out.
Nice.
So,
awesome.
We'll have all of it at that point.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gary. And thank you to everyone who joined
our show
today. Great time. Join us next week, 11 a.m. I'm going to have a surprise guest next Wednesday. And until then, keep telling your story and shine in your light. Take care, everybody.
Love you. Thank you. Thanks, Mitch.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching.